It is 10:02. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Calvin Ridley has been suspended for the entirety of the 2022 season after gambling on games in November of 2021. Ridley played 5 games last year before stepping away for personal reasons and reportedly placed parlay bets that involved the Falcons 3 different times. It is franchise tag deadline day in the NFL. Teams must decide by 3 p.m. Central which players will get the tag. The Titans' primary candidate, outside linebacker Harold Landry. The league has also informed teams that the 2022 salary cap is set at over $208 million, the first time the cap exceeds $200 million. The University of Tennessee Chattanooga is going dancing after winning the Big South Tournament Championship over Furman 64-63 in overtime on a buzzer beater 3 by David Jean-Baptiste.
Jean-Baptiste with one. Heaves it for the win. Oh! Chattanooga with a game-winning shot in overtime and a shot he will never forget. Oh, my goodness.
Tom Hart on the ESPN TV call. Also, Georgia State, led by former Tennessee assistant coach Rob Lanier, also clinched a tournament bid with an 80-71 win over Louisiana in the Sun Belt Championship. Also in college hoops news, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution has reported Georgia head coach Tom Crean is set to leave the program after the SEC tournament. Crean is 6-25 and in his 4th year at UGA and has not had a winning season. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
It is indeed that time. Good morning. Welcome in on this Tuesday, 104.5 The Zone. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock. We got Lucas Panzica making it happen behind the scenes. We got your phone calls throughout the course of today's show, 615-737-1045. If you want to jump in, 615-737-1045. That is indeed the number. Lot to talk about today. It is tag deadline day, 3 p.m. Central Time is when that comes down in the NFL. Franchise tag decisions to make, a lot of them already made. But just, 2 miles, 2.5 miles from where we're broadcasting right now at St. Thomas Sports Park, they got a decision to make on Harold Landry, and we will discuss that throughout the course of today's show. I want to start, though, with this story that has dominated. I think J. Martin Ramon talked about it for 4 straight hours. As I understand it, when, interrupting it slightly when Slay came in to scream about whatever Slay was here to scream about and leave. Have you been through the latest offerings from Ron Slay, by the way? There's like a full spread every time I walk in the studio.
What do you think?
So you've already came in here and garbage disposaled your way through their leftovers.
And I'm not done.
Good morning, Lucas. So, yes, this Calvin Ridley story. I mean, it's been discussed, it's not even 24 hours removed, but it feels like it's the biggest talking point across sports today and yesterday. He's been suspended for at least 1 season, so he's out for 2022. He hadn't played since Halloween. That feels like an eternity ago. In fact, I remember sitting in the press box at Lucas Oil because the Colts and the Titans were playing in Indianapolis on Halloween as well, and we got that news drop while we were all getting settled in our press box seats, getting ready to cover the game. And Calvin Ridley was going to just straight up miss some time. And then later it came out that it was for personal reasons, for the purposes of getting his mental health right. And that comes up a lot more in football than it used to. Not to do like the back in my day type of thing, because it really feels like ever since Kevin Love, during his time with the Cleveland Cavaliers, the championship team that he and LeBron James and Kyrie Irving were on, and he was the focal point of a lot of criticism, as was Chris Bosh before him on the last LeBron James super team. Mental health in sports, it is a more publicly discussed situation. And at the time, you felt, one, good on the Atlanta Falcons for allowing him this time, given that their season didn't have a lot of, I don't want to say hope is the right word because you're always trying to win football games, but they weren't really going anywhere in Arthur Smith's first year in Atlanta. And then you get to this situation where the NFL is putting out statements, the Atlanta Falcons are putting out statements, that while he was suspended, or not suspended rather, while he was missing time due to mental health, he had been gambling on games over a 5-day stretch in November when he was on the non-football injury list. So he stepped away on Halloween, got his personal life in order, or that's what he was supposed to be doing, and, he just happened to place a friendly $1,500 wager while he was hanging out. And listen, if sports gambling is how you take care of your mental health, I'm not saying that people can't have hobbies, but, a little self-awareness would be nice. And so the league comes down yesterday, hammers him as one of the first active NFL players during the gambling partnership era, right? There have been punishments in the NFL going back to the 1960s for players who wager on games. And it seems that their policy has not adapted, even though they have since become a gambling partner. I mean, hell, it's going to keep all of us alive, right? I bet on college basketball. I bet on college football. I bet on everything other than the NFL, honestly. Shout out DraftKings Sportsbook. But the gambling companies are dumping money all over the place. And now they're partnering with the leagues. The NFL waited 3 years after the NBA got involved with this before they were comfortable taking on this kind of money. And it's just billions, billions with a B, in untapped revenue that nobody had been really doing anything with. But the suspension and the punishments for players remain the same. For going back to the 1960s, there's been no adaptation of the rule, even though the league says, yeah, now it's okay to take their money and take all of your money as you play daily fantasy or whether you're betting, Sixers money line, whatever. We're here for it. Let's go ahead and get this thing cranked up and spread that wealth all over the place in what is already North America's richest sports league. So Calvin Ridley is going to miss at least a year. And, he got on Twitter yesterday after this news started to come out, after the league put out its statement. And he was just he was tweeting through it. And I guess I get it. You want to defend yourself. You're being publicly dragged across the surface of the sun by everybody, including myself, who was asked about this on 3HL yesterday. Ron Slay and we didn't get in an argument, but Slay didn't think it was a big deal. And I'm sitting here saying, whether the act of gambling as an active NFL player is a big deal or not, that's not the point. The point is he was an idiot about it, and he put his name on. There's a paper trail leading back to Calvin Ridley. I'm not advocating for people to break the rules, but if you're going to do it, don't be an idiot about it. And that is indeed the case. And not only was there a paper trail leading back to Calvin Ridley, instead of taking advantage of the 3-day window that he is allowed to appeal this at least. It's an indefinite suspension that is going to last at least one season. So he would have had the opportunity, and technically still does, to appeal this, to try and lessen this, at least by some degree, right? And instead, he's tweeting all manner of things about, I put down $1,500, but I don't have a gambling problem. I know I was wrong, but I'm getting 1 year, LOL. Shut up. Just shut up. Put the phone down. Any kind of leg that you had to stand on to say, maybe I didn't know what I was doing, or maybe it's not as sinister as it looks, or maybe you can't hit me with X, Y, and Z based on the letter of the law because you don't have evidence. No, you've just given them all the evidence that they need to uphold your minimum one-season suspension. It's not the crime as much as it is the way that he went about it, which is dumb. 615-737-1045. Do you believe this is a fair suspension that the league has handed down? because, I'm inclined to think that it's a bit antiquated. We'll get into that more coming up next. Your phone calls on this and the tags across the NFL today. Franchise tags, tight ends flying off the market all over the place. We're going to get into that at length. So jump in on the phone line if you want, and we'll talk about that on the other side. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back on this Tuesday, Franchise Tag Tuesday to be exact. We're supposed to have Aaron Rodgers clarity today as well, right? Whether the Green Bay Packers end up tagging Davante Adams, one of the top free agents on the market, how much that is going to impact whether Aaron Rodgers stays or decides to, let the Packers know that he would like to take his talents elsewhere, which would then make my life a living hell. So here's hoping the Packers tag Davante Adams today. I shouldn't say that, though, because, I want Aaron Rodgers to play for the Titans. That would be great. That would make my life vastly more interesting, respectfully, to Ryan Tannehill. Now, that doesn't matter. That's just a selfish perspective. But I think just to have this thing just to move on from it, I would rather have some clarity on his situation today rather than letting that linger. The tight end position is something we do have clarity on, at least for the franchise tag situation. You've had a bunch of dudes come off the board so far today. As far as the guys at the top of the conversation, you've seen Mike Gesicki, Dalton Schultz, a number of guys who have been tagged by their teams. And honestly, it's probably the deepest position in free agency this year. The most famous name of those is Rob Gronkowski. You got a couple of other dudes who would be starters and just rotational guys. For example, the Titans have three of those dudes: Jeff Swaim, Anthony Ferkser, and Michael Pruitt. All three unrestricted free agents this year. They are also planning at this point to tag Chris Godwin, the Bucs are, if they are not able to come to terms on a long-term extension. So they want to keep him in Tampa Bay. Either way, that would not be an ideal situation for Chris Godwin because there is no quarterback. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on this conversation if you like. Let's go to Jason, who's in Murfreesboro, wants to chime in on this Tuesday. Hello, Jason.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Well, thank you.
I was going to add that they said Rob Gronkowski was rumors him looking at Buffalo Bills. And me personally, being here in Nashville, I know for a fact that somebody probably wants to come home, which is Dawson Knox. Man, if they get Rob Gronkowski, let's see if we can get Dawson Knox to come home. He played at Brentwood Academy. I think that'd be a great fit for him. But also, knowing that,
Jason,
we got
whoa, Jason, he's under contract. He's not available.
Oh, okay. Well, I think also us figuring out a quarterback situation, that might help us figure out what tight end might want to come to us. That'll solve that problem. We get Aaron Rodgers, I can see a bunch of tight ends trying to come to us, but if we're going to stay with Tannehill, there's probably a lot of tight ends. I don't want to come here because we got Tannehill.
Thank you for the call, Jason. 615-737-1045. Are we just at the point? Are we off-season drunk? Is that what's happening? Trade for everybody?
Yeah, they would have to trade for Dawson Knox.
I'm not mad at Jason. I'm just disappointed.
He is a free agent in 1 year, though.
Well, sure, but don't you think the Bills would like to keep him? It's not like you can't have two tight ends.
I think that I'm surprised you're not hearing more conversation about the Bills extending Dawson Knox with the way he broke out last season.
It's entirely possible. We're not, having those conversations because we're not in Buffalo. It's entirely possible that they are. Here's what I don't want to do today. I don't want people to just lob out names that they know because they're famous player X, and that's what makes the most sense for Tennessee. We're going to get plenty of that in a couple. Free agency, that window opens up next week, right? Oh, God help us. That's when it's going to be peak off-season drunk. Now, what Jason is saying, I understand. You start to see rumors on the internet, and it's not Jason's job to follow this stuff every day like it is ours. I'm completely respectful of that. But also, it can't just be because you see one player rumored to go there, and I've seen the same kind of stuff, but it's on things and I don't want to diminish the fan sites like Titans Wire and Bills Wire or all these other SB Nation sites that have people just blogging about the teams and CBS Sports predicts that Rob Gronkowski will land with the Tennessee Titans. Like, that's a headline that I saw yesterday. I don't care what CBS Sports predicts. If I want, I'll make predictions, and then you can aggregate whatever the hell it is that I say without any context or grounding in reality is what I'm trying to say. So, I mean, I would like to avoid that portion of the offseason. I know it's inevitable. It's Thanos. It's coming for all of our necks. It's just going to squash us. And until such time as this Aaron Rodgers situation removes itself from our lives, it's going to continue to swirl the way that it does. But, I'm fascinated. And we'll get into the free agent tight end market later on because I do think that they're going to dip into it. And I'll give you a name. In fact, I've already done this, but I'll give you a name later on that I think you still need to watch. But Pat McAfee breaking some news. Shall we do this? Give me the cheesy sounder that I hate.
Breaking sports news on 104.5 The Zone.
Can you guess? Breaking.
Aaron Rodgers news?
According to my sources, Aaron Rodgers will be officially returning to the Green Bay Packers. There is no deal in place currently, but there is said to be a cap-friendly deal on the way. Retirement was a real consideration, and in the end, he is back with the Pack. Mercifully. Can you quickly get me some celebration music? Like, I don't know how quickly you can turn this around. I believe in your professionalism. I don't know what you have at your disposal. Give me some kind of music I can dance to. I'll take it. Oh,
like that? It's mixed with the sports sounder.
Quick to the club. No, make it stop. This is egregious. There's a lot going on in my head right now.
Our long national nightmare is over.
This is so dumb. Listen to us celebrating the idea that the local professional football team is not going to get a future Hall of Famer.
That's not what we're celebrating.
What are we celebrating?
The fact that we don't have to talk about it anymore because it was never going to happen.
So let's talk about it, shall we? So now you know. I mean, here, like.
We have terms, too.
Oh, you have terms? Go ahead and read me some terms.
Rap sheet is out there. The Packers and MVP quarterback Aaron Rodgers have agreed to terms on a 4-year, $200 million deal that makes him the highest paid player in NFL history. A whopping $153 million guaranteed, and his cap number goes down.
So everybody wins. He gets to stay. He gets super rich. He gets to go back to the organization who he knows is going to tell him he's pretty every single day, even though his hair looks greasy and unkempt. And the Packers get a deal out of it that keeps him in town and lowers his incredibly bloated cap hit because they don't have cap space right now. This is like I don't want to celebrate the fact that the Titans aren't getting this, but like, guys, come on. We spent so much time talking about this particular deal and what it would take for the Tennessee Titans to be able to acquire a player like this. It was never grounded in reality because the reality of the situation is Ryan Tannehill, it's not just that you would have to find a team to take him. Have you looked at the details of his contract lately? If they move him, they're still on the hook for like $28 million, at least according to Spotrac, with the way that contract was structured and all of the details that we have. So, like, he'd be a mother bleeper to trade. So not only would you have to find somebody to take that off your hands after he's coming off one of the worst and most memorable performances of his career. You're going to take on the optics of that and the contract and the money that you would have to eat just to move him and then pay more money to get a player that's probably going to cost you not just draft picks, but like good football players that you need. I'm not saying that it's not something you should have wanted. I would love to cover Aaron Rodgers, would have loved to cover Aaron Rodgers. Now it's a done deal. But for the Titans, like, it was never a situation that made sense. And anything that tried to get you to think otherwise, I'm sorry, it's just gaslighting, which is exactly what I told you when we did the radio show yesterday, when I wrote my article on Saturday, after, digging some stuff up on this, after Mike Florio put out the report, people in the NFL were talking about this. He's just trying to get, being Aaron Rodgers, is just trying to get more people to tell him he's pretty. And the person or the organization that has already capitulated to that behavior, not that others wouldn't, but it's the same organization that just straight up traded for the ghost of Randall Cobb because it made Aaron Rodgers happy to do so.
Did you think that was good? Tell me I'm good. Tell me it was good.
Aaron, you're great.
Tell me I'm good.
You're so good.
Tell me that was good.
It was good.
Tell me I'm good.
Getting the number 1 seed was good, even if you pooped your pants a little bit.
Tell me I'm good.
You're
Tell
good.
me I'm good. Thank you. Is it that hard?
It was that hard. All right. Can we move on? Do I have to do any? What? How long do you think we can go before I physically have to say the name Aaron Rodgers from that point on, from this point on, after having just said it? How long do you think I can go without having to say that name into a microphone again?
I don't know. There's either going to be a big response where the phones will light up any second, or people will be like, oh, okay, that was fun.
Well, I mean, I guess we should ask people how they feel about it. 615-737-1045. Do you believe this is the correct decision, not just for Aaron Rodgers, but for the Tennessee Titans? Because, as you know, they had a contingency plan should he come available. This was reported by Mike Florio that they were not the only team that had that idea in place. They had the structure of what it would look like to acquire this player. Them, Pittsburgh, and Denver. While Green Bay also the incumbent, the favorite, and ultimately the place that he lands. Do you believe, because I feel like people are going to, and I haven't looked at the internet yet. I'm sure Twitter is melting down, at least locally, and thank God that Twitter is not real life, because if that was the case, it would be just apocalyptically bad for all of our mental health. But I feel like people are going to look at this locally, or at least on the super reactionary side of things, and be like, all right, the Titans are doomed because they're not going to be able to get over the hump with Ryan Tannehill. And, I mean, that was never the line that we had as a show. I don't know that there was consensus about that fact. I was listening to, I can't remember who I was listening to yesterday about this, but basically they were alleging that the consensus around this was that Ryan Tannehill was never good enough. And not to make ourselves bigger than we actually are, but I think I've been pretty consistent on that subject, that I think that Ryan Tannehill is the best realistic solution for this football team this year. I'm not saying beyond 2022. I'm not saying, I did say I think you can still win a Super Bowl with Ryan Tannehill. And I'm still entrenched in that position, even though his last time on a football field was utterly catastrophic. So I don't think that Aaron Rodgers going or staying in the NFC North is the doomsday scenario that a lot of people are probably going to paint this out to be. You can interact with the show either via the phones or on the Zone TV chat. We've got YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch live streaming right now. So wherever you want to hang out physically, hang out in the studio with us, you're welcome to do so. Kate and Stu Adventure, so I don't know who's running the YouTube account, either Kate or Stu. Maybe Kat and Stu. Either way, somebody writes, Tennessee Titans did not need Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers is nothing but an overpaid drama queen. I don't care. I don't care about that at all. Do you need Aaron Rodgers to win a Super Bowl? Okay, there's layers to this conversation here. Do you need Aaron Rodgers to win a Super Bowl? No. Does life get a lot easier to win the Super Bowl if you have Aaron Rodgers on your roster? Of course. What are you giving up to get Aaron Rodgers on your roster? Who does Green Bay want that is cost-effective, talented, and worth their time to give up their most valuable asset, the thing that they are physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually bending over backwards to keep, even though he has been a bit of a drama queen, which is fine. He's allowed to be. when you're that good, I mean, there's different levels of entitlement, right? If you're the best at what you do, maybe you shouldn't be a jerk about it or shouldn't be dramatic about it, but you're allowed to be because you're the best. The rules are different for the people at the height of their profession. People hate Stephen A. Smith. I say this because I'm watching both of them on my television screen right now in a side-by-side box. Stephen A. Smith is wagging a finger at me on my television in the studio. People despise that man. But why does Stephen A. get to be the way that Stephen A. is? Because he's the best at saying things into a television camera or a microphone, arguably of all time. Unless Chris Mad Dog Russo is out there dogging him on his own platform. Lucas, what do you have for me?
Yeah, Pat McAfee has followed up saying the report of a 4-year, $200 million deal is not accurate, according to his sources.
Whoa.
So he is staying in Green Bay, but now there's questions about the actual number.
Rap Sheet. Rap Sheet's a guest on the McAfee show. He's just undermined his own regular guest. Look at Pat. I love this. 615-737-1045. So he's now the highest paid player in NFL history. Gary Todd tweets us, so all you guys saying the Titans should make a run at Aaron, how do you look today? But like this is not, I'm not having that conversation, right? Like I'm not pointing and laughing at people that wanted Aaron Rodgers. I wanted to cover Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying, who's the guy that was in our Twitch chat saying yesterday that Aaron Rodgers is building a house in Williamson County, so of course which, by the way, flattering, that somebody would think that Aaron Rodgers, just because he's building a house here in Middle Tennessee, would be listening to our humble little radio show.
Yes,
and that,
apologies for torpedoing this deal.
Oh, see, this is now. How long does it take for that guy to resurface?
I told you.
It's your fault. You scumbag. He was surveying the construction site in Brentwood of his new compound. Lucas is literally pounding the table back there.
Chimed into the Buck Reising Show.
He popped on. What do we think Aaron Rodgers drives? Aaron Rodgers doesn't strike me as the word. I don't know.
A Tesla, maybe? I don't know.
What's the most unctuous thing? What's the most unctuous vehicle that a person can drive?
I have never heard that word in my life.
Unctuous?
Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, look it up. We'll do an Urban Dictionary reading. Look it up on Urban Dictionary, and I'll make you read the definition in the microphone here in just a second.
No idea how to spell that.
I
consider myself a bit of a wordsmith.
All right. Well, I'm not going to spell for you on air. That's terrible radio. But so I'm going to trust your Googling abilities to be able to look that up on Urban Dictionary. It basically means pretentious. Is an easier way to do that.
It means excessively or insincerely polite, according to Urban Dictionary.
Okay. So what would Aaron Rodgers drive that would be that would make him, that would give Aaron Rodgers a higher sense of morality?
A Range Rover.
No, I think it's a Subaru. I do. Something about people that drive Subarus always, respectfully, if you're driving around in a Subaru right now, I love you as a person. Just know that the Subaru conveys, something about the Subaru conveys a bit of entitlement. No? Maybe not in the era of eco-friendly vehicles and things of that nature, now that we're trying to outdo ourselves with, whose electric car can do more things and, slowly rid us of the usefulness of having a driver. Anyway, I sound like an old man shaking a fist at the sky about electric vehicles. 615-737-1045. Ryan is in Murfreesboro here today. Hello, Ryan. How are we?
Doing good. How you doing, Buck? Zika virus. How we doing?
I'm well, thank you.
So, for one, Aaron Rodgers drives a Prius. We don't need that here in Tennessee. He can stay in Green Bay and eat tree bark with his girlfriend, Shailene Woodley. Tannehill is our dude. He got us to the AFC Championship his first year. He's gotten us to the playoffs every year. It's the play calling. I mean, come on. Deontay Foreman had that huge run in that game, and you passed the ball. No. Keep running the ball. It's the play calling. Keep the hope in Tannehill, everybody. Keep the hope alive.
Thanks for the call, Ryan. 615-737-1045. I think a lot of people are having because the fan base hasn't forgiven Ryan Tannehill. There's just there's no sense of that to me. I think the team has done nothing but support him after the fact because the players, the coaches, the executives, everybody's who's responsible and who Ryan Tannehill is directly tied to their success, is there to support him because he needs him. What are you laughing about back there? What are you giggling
Our
about?
friend Charlie in Franklin didn't want to be on the air, but wanted to say Rodgers drives a Bentley SUV.
No, Charlie cannot. You are not here to voice Charlie's. I love that you and Charlie just have a dialogue
Charlie's
back there.
the only person I'll do that for.
What? Take requests?
Yeah, like PSA, if I answer the phone and you say, I don't want to be on the air, Buck, can you tell Buck? I'm probably not going to tell Buck. So I got a lot going on here. But Charlie's the exception.
Except Charlie. Okay. When we come back, let's do some winners and losers of the sports weekend. I got a few, and we got to talk about them. That's next. Oh, goodness. 4-year deal. Aaron Rodgers back with the pack. Dallas Cowboys have just officially announced from their own social media account that their franchise tag has been used on Dalton Schultz, the tight end. And we're taking your phone calls, 615-737-1045. We're going to do winners and losers of the sports weekend here in just a second. Lucas, I think, has just changed his loser to one that is very, very timely. Quickly, though, you were saying that you were having a conversation with my girlfriend this morning?
Yes, she wanted to make sure we both knew it is International Women's Day today. What is it, March 8th? To which I responded, every day is International Women's Day, but today we celebrate International Women's Day.
Okay, well, yes, we are celebrating International Women's Day. What should we do for Dawn Davenport? Should we leave one of these J. Martin Ramon leftover breakfast tacos for Dawn Davenport for International Women's Day? How should we celebrate
It does
Dawn?
seem sweet.
Well, once you've picked through it.
Maybe run and pick up some flowers. But you got to do it. I'm on air till 3.
Okay. I'll be sure to do that. I'd like to dive into so instead of reaching out to me directly, the person who I'm in a relationship with texted you because what? You're like responsible for me? Because I couldn't be trusted with remembering something like this?
I don't know the reason for these things. She was also asking me about Megan and how she's doing in med school and great stuff like that. But just wanted to remind me and make sure you knew it. It is International Women's Day.
All right, well, I don't know if Stephen A. Smith is applicable, but a very happy International Women's Day to everybody, including apparently my girlfriend.
International Women's Day to all the girls.
I don't care. Good luck.
That was tough.
Every day is International Women's Day.
I appreciate you trying to do that in real time. Bravo. We do care. All right, open up the circus tent. Winners and losers of the sports weekend. This can be defined many different ways. If you're new to this feature, it's quite simple. Who won and who lost based off the result of this past weekend in sports. 615-737-1045. If you would allow me to begin the proceedings with something that was not, oh God, Dawn Davenport's just texted us.
What's your favorite flower, Dawn?
The loser may be us. I'll read that text here in a second. No, the winner of the sports weekend, the number one in the SoCon, Chattanooga Mocs. A buzzer beater in overtime. Buzzer beaters all over the place. At the end of regulation, we have the radio call. I believe the final call of the 64-63 win over the mighty Furman Paladins.
David Jean-Baptiste drives, goes up, three-pointer on the way. Got it! He hit it! David Jean-Baptiste, 3 at the buzzer. Bucks win it!
Winner, the Chattanooga Mocs. They are NCAA tournament bound. They put on such a show last night. I was screaming at my television. Only college basketball conference tournaments and the tournament itself, which we'll get into in a couple of weeks, make me feel that way about sports, that physically make me get out of my seat and listen to people screaming like that. All I just kept yelling at my television is, March!
A winner of the sports weekend are the University of North Carolina Tar Heels. And anybody that hates the Duke Blue Devils, because if that is you, then Saturday was chef's kiss. My winner is the Tar Heels because they made Coach K in his final game at Cameron Indoor Stadium when he addressed the crowd say this.
This isn't part of the program. This is impromptu by me. I'm sorry about this afternoon. Please, everyone be quiet. Let me just say, it's unacceptable. Today was unacceptable, but the season has been very acceptable. And
I don't despise Duke, right? Like, I don't have this, I don't like them. I don't want to see them always win. Many people do. And Duke hasn't had that much of an effect on my life for me to have this deep-seated hatred for them. But I'm happy for all my Duke hater friends because Saturday must have been just the most, what's the Antonio Banderas, lean back and just satisfying GIF. That was amazing.
Antonio Banderas is not a name that I thought would be used on our radio show today. Loser, Calvin Ridley. I mean, how many more ways do I need to peel back the onion on this? We currently have a poll up at Buck Reising on Twitter. What do we think Calvin Ridley's betting username was? I've seen some pretty clever nominees. Anytime you self-incriminate that way, losing $11 million because you've been suspended for at least one NFL season on a $1,500 bet while you're supposed to be getting right for mental health. Loser, both financially and, I mean, he's going to miss a year and a half of football. He hasn't played. I'm trying to think the last game that he played because he did not play in that October 31st game.
He only played 5 games last year.
So he has been non-existent. Over a year and a half of football is what Calvin Ridley is going to ultimately miss. I was laughing reading his tweets last night because he's saying, well, I'll just be healthier when I come back. Buddy, you may not have a career when you come back. Loser Calvin Ridley.
Dawn Davenport has texted us. She is upset at my winner of the weekend being the North Carolina Tar Heels. Noted Duke fan,
What?
Dawn Davenport.
Why is she a Duke fan?
You didn't know this about Dawn?
No.
Dawn's always been a Duke fan.
Oh, well, no wonder she's so.
She has good reason to be a Duke fan.
Okay.
My loser of the weekend is Jordan Love. What a waste. What a waste of a first-round pick. You thought that this was the year that things would split amicably between the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, and they would move forward with first-round pick, what was it, number 16 overall, Jordan Love as the next franchise quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. This has to show you how little they think of former Utah State star Jordan Love. He is my loser of the weekend.
Was he a top 10 pick?
No, number 16, I thought.
Still.
Top 20.
Top 20. And he hasn't seen the field. I mean, he's seen the field in games like where they've clinched the number 1 overall seed and they don't want Aaron Rodgers to get hurt. Like that's been, and when Aaron Rodgers has COVID, that's been the extent of his playing time.
He was the number 26 pick in the draft. Apologies.
Okay, still. I mean, it's a first round draft pick. And listen, you may the strategy there may have been let's just piss Aaron Rodgers off and now back-to-back MVP awards. And listen, no Super Bowls yet, but still. Like, what must Jordan Love think at this point? Brian Gutekunst, who is getting bailed out, it would seem, because he's got the best quarterback in the world right now without Tom Brady actively being on an NFL roster. And he wasted a first-round pick on a guy who he can't play. You can't get him on the field because Aaron Rodgers is just saying, bleep you guys.
Well, we do winners and losers of the draft right after it happens, right? When in reality, we have no idea how these prospects are going to pan out in the NFL. Well, immediately after Jordan Love was taken in the first round, the entire world was like, Green Bay, what are you doing? You have a Hall of Fame quarterback. Help him win a Super Bowl. And 2 years later, that point still very much stands. So maybe the Green Bay Packers should actually be the loser of the weekend for wasting a first-round pick 2 years before they're going to pay their franchise quarterback $200 million.
Every part of me, every fiber of my being wants to lean into this now and say the Titans should trade for Jordan Love, the other Green Bay Packers quarterback. Nope. I feel like for as much as this has been a part of my life that I feel like I need to lash back out and continue the campaign for the Tennessee Titans to trade for a Green Bay Packers quarterback, except it's the one that can't get on the field because they need a better backup than Logan Woodside. I don't know if Jordan Love is better than Logan Woodside. I don't know. Unbelievable. When we come back, Lucas is telling me in my ear that there's more breaking Packers news. We'll tell you what that is coming up next.
It is 11:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. Huge news today in the NFL. The long saga with Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers is finally over. Initially reported by Pat McAfee, he will remain in Green Bay. Ian Rappaport of NFL Network followed it up, saying the Packers and Rodgers have agreed to terms on a 4-year, $200 million deal that makes him the highest paid player in NFL history. It also creates some cap room for the Packers, to which Rappaport also says they're expected to franchise tag wide receiver Davante Adams. The deadline for the tag is today at 3 p.m. Central. Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Calvin Ridley has been suspended for the entirety of the 2022 season after gambling on games in November of 2021. Ridley played 5 games last season before stepping away for personal reasons and reportedly placed parlay bets that involved the Falcons 3 times. In college basketball, the SEC has released its end-of-season awards. Coach of the Year, Bruce Pearl at Auburn. Player of the Year is Oscar Tshiebwe at Kentucky. For Vanderbilt, the Scholar Athlete of the Year is Jordan Wright. Tennessee's Zakai Ziegler making the All-Defensive Team. Tennessee's Santiago Vescovi, first-team All-SEC. And Vanderbilt's Scottie Pippen Jr., also first-team All-SEC. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 off and rolling. Welcome in to 104.5 The Zone. Happy to have you guys in for the show, or if you're just now, or if you've been with us all morning, rather, we're happy to have you stick around. Jump in if you like, 615-737-1045. That's the number, 615-737-1045 is how you do so. Mike Ginnitti of Spotrac is going to be here momentarily, and we'll talk about Franchise Tag Day deadline, 3 p.m. Central Time. So right when 3HL comes on the air, if not before, we'll know whether the Titans are going to keep Harold Landry around on the franchise tag specifically. Now, we'll do the pros and cons of tagging Harold here in just a second. But, Lucas, you told me you had some additional Packers news because, of course, if you've been paying attention to anything in sports today, Aaron Rodgers is returning to the Packers, and I don't have to worry about this anymore.
Yes, with the cap room that's been created, Ian Rappaport saying that the Packers will place the franchise tag on wide receiver Davante Adams.
Now, is this being disputed by Pat McAfee? Because the contract details of Aaron Rodgers are currently.
Yeah, I have not seen that element of Rappaport's report disputed by McAfee, but he did dispute the 4-year, $200 million figure.
So 4-year, $200 million, that would mean $50 million a year for Aaron Rodgers.
Most in NFL history. I mean, that's the number. That's the number that's been floated out there, right, as what he has wanted this whole time.
That's wild to me. But it's not about the money, right? Didn't he say that?
Right. No, it's not about the money.
It's not about the money.
I mean, McAfee has straight up replied to Rap Sheet saying this is false.
No, I know.
On the Rodgers contract stuff.
Which is funny because, like I said, Rap Sheet is a regular guest on Pat's show. Look at Pat out here breaking news.
I mean, if there's anywhere you trust him, right, as far as NFL news goes, it would be Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, sure. No, listen, people would rather talk to Pat than talk to me, you know? or like I was reading Diana Rossini, our friend, I was texting with Diana actually about the Aaron Rodgers situation yesterday. And I was reading her newsletter. She does a newsletter on a regular basis, like news and notes from around the NFL. And it's always good to keep up with stuff like that. And she said that she had put out a report about Aaron Rodgers and his status. I'll read directly from it. It's she's got a Substack. It's called The Diary of NFL insider Diana Rossini. So you can check that out wherever. And it's specific to Aaron Rodgers this week. Now, this is obviously prior to today's news, which is that he's coming back. Now, Aaron Rodgers had disputed Diana's report about him wanting to be the highest paid player in the league, calling it, quote, categorically false. And now he's the highest paid in NFL history. Diana writes, he should check in with his reps. I respect that. She had also said in here that she had texted Rodgers personally, but that he had yet to respond. So, why you lying, Aaron? Why does it matter? If you want to be the highest paid player, just come out and say it. Enough. Why does he feel the need to be? I'm fascinated by him. And, we've already lost our own bet for how long it would take me to not say this name into a microphone again. But don't you find this interesting? Why is he so passive aggressive? Why does he feel the need to operate this way? He's the most is he not, now that Brady's gone, in theory, how long until we get a call Brady to the Titans? Is he not the most powerful quarterback in the sport right now?
Easily. Look at the last few weeks.
Well, I mean, easily, I don't know. Like Pat Mahomes during the George Floyd thing, Pat Mahomes put together a video with a bunch of athletes in the NFL that had Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the league, apologizing for Colin Kaepernick. Like, that's legitimate power.
Yeah.
Right? That's your most marketable star, one of your most marketable stars, at a premium position saying, hey, what you did was wrong. Come say sorry for it. So, I don't know, obviously, but there's certainly the case to be made for him as the most powerful player in the NFL. So why not just come out and say that you want the bag? I'm not mad at you. What are you afraid? You're more afraid of saying that publicly than you were all of these crazy conspiracies that he was spouting about immunization versus vaccination on McAfee Show. That you're comfortable saying in public, but the rest of it, like the money, no, it's too taboo of a subject. I can't get into that here. So dumb. So the Titans have their own decision to make financially today, to tag or not to tag Harold Landry. So at this point, there's been no movement on that front. Now you guys we've talked about this before. Harold desires to be the highest paid player in his meeting room, which if he was to stay here, would put him north of $16.5 million on an average annual value, because that's what Bud Dupree currently makes. So they can start negotiating with unrestricted free agents a week from now, basically. And as you kind of look at his future, I still don't have any clarity. I've been trying to dig into this a little bit today and throughout the course of the week. I've not been able to find clarity on whether they are going to tag Harold Landry or not. We played for you that audio yesterday of John Robinson speaking about the pros and cons of this particular situation and what it would mean to bring back Harold Landry, one of their better players. Now, in a perfect world, that's what you do. He's led them in sacks each of the last 3 years. He's coming off a career year, 14 tackles for loss, 22 quarterback hits, and 12 sacks. His numbers, he hasn't missed a game in those 3 seasons that he has led them in sacks. Available, productive, committed to the cause. All 3 benchmarks necessary or basically on precedent that John Robinson has paid players like Harold Landry before. Jarrell Casey, Taylor Lewan, Kevin Byard, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry. All guys who met that classification. Now, if you tag him, that would limit the long-term salary cap damage, but your short-term financial impact in your win-now window, it goes through the roof. The franchise tag values that were released Monday, it would cost them $18.7 million if he classified as a linebacker, or $17.8 million if he classified as a defensive end. Now, one would think, because Harold's smart, and because you've heard John say it, he'd be pushing for the linebacker tag in the same way that Mike Gesicki is pushing for the wide receiver tag because he's never actually lined up as an inline tight end. And he'll win that grievance, by the way, Gesicki will. Jimmy Graham started this years ago with the way that the Saints were using him. And his desire to be paid wide receiver money, because at the time, it's still a substantial difference between the top tight ends and the top wide receivers, but you get my point. Every time you drop Harold Landry into coverage, it just means that he's going to be able to get a little closer to winning the grievance should he choose to be classified as a linebacker. So 18.7 hard cap hit. It doesn't make sense to do. From my standpoint, if you want to keep Harold, franchise tag is not the way, right? The Mandalorian, this is the way. 18.7 in a year where you're already projected to be $7 million over, that would open up a conversation about a lot more cuts that need to happen. A lot more cap casualties than you might otherwise have expected. Good football players leaving the roster because you've had to pour so many of your resources, so much of your resources, into one single year. And Harold's good. Harold's earned it. But the limitations that brings, those are, without question, not. We're going to talk to Mike Ginnitti of Spotrac about this. Spotrac, I do that every damn time. I don't know why. Mickey Ryan texts me, reminds me regularly the pronunciation of this thing. Spotrac. I don't know why I can't get it. Anyway, Mike is going to join us coming up next, and we'll figure out, or we'll have him tell us, what deal makes the most sense to keep Harold Landry in Tennessee. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone. Hello? Am I back on? I guess I'm back on. What on earth? Okay. I guess that was the, we have regularly scheduled tests?
Yes, that was the emergency test. A very lengthy one.
Good God.
But all is well.
All right.
You can get out of your bunkers.
Apparently. I love that we just left me up on the stream during that. I'm just wandering around looking like an idiot. We'll call Ginnitti back. People are apparently calling the radio station now, I'm sure, to tell us that we are back on the air. Anyway, we're back on. We'll await Mike Ginnitti of Spotrac, and we'll ask him if the salary cap is indeed a lie. What a ridiculous thing that has been happening here on 104.5 The Zone. David O'Neill tweets us, that interruption just scared the hell out of me. It just scared you. Scared me. I didn't know what was going on. I thought I hit a button that I wasn't supposed to hit. Anyway, so we'll get into this situation with Mike Ginnitti of Spotrac, who joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Hello, Mike. I apologize for the delay.
No, happy to be here. Let's do it.
All right. So tell me, is the salary cap a lie? Because what the hell did the Green Bay Packers just do with all the money that they're shelling out for Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams on a tag?
It's real, but it's movable. It's fluid. They're putting their top two in and saying we'll figure the rest out in the next 7 days. But it's a bold move for sure. This is going to be historic stuff over the next couple hours here.
So when you say that, can you kind of, for the audience who doesn't necessarily understand all the hoops that they're going to have to go through now that they've made this decision to commit that kind of capital to just two players, what does this mean over the next 7 days for a team like Green Bay?
Yeah, so let's just drop the $20 million tag for Davante Adams in there and call it, they need to free up about 50 to 60 million over the next 7 days. They have to get over zero. They have to get cap neutral here by March 16th, 4 p.m. Eastern. So, that's going to mean a couple of releases. That's going to mean some serious restructures. Obviously, the Rodgers deal will save maybe 12 to 14 million of cap space because of the restructure, but there's a lot of carnage coming here. They might lose their kicker. I think Zadarius Smith goes. There's a couple of big names that are going to hit the open market here because of these two signings specifically.
This was a conversation that we were dragged through, Mike, because Mike Florio put out a report over the weekend while everybody was in the combine or in Indianapolis for the combine, saying that Tennessee was one of the teams that he was considering. And to me, it seemed completely improbable, because not just would they have to take on a substantially bigger cap hit at the quarterback position, they would have to trade Ryan Tannehill. And if I'm reading your website, Spotrac.com, correctly, it would cost Tennessee a considerable amount of money to even trade Ryan Tannehill.
Right. That's why, to me, it was never, ever realistic. Even if it's an upgrade at the position from a football standpoint, the business never aligned properly to make that move. Otherwise, I think you're right up there with Denver as a top destination because of how the rest of the roster look and is constructed. So it wasn't natural. I do think that was a bit of a bogus report just to get 4 or 5 teams out there. Maybe that was brought in by the agent to kind of stir the pot a little bit more. But, here we are. I think this is what most of us expected, but the numbers are way bigger than I ever thought we'd see.
Yeah, $50 million a year for the quarterback position. 4 years, $200 million is what Rap Sheet is reporting right now, although Pat McAfee is out here saying that it's fake news. So we'll see. I think Rodgers is supposed to be on their show today. So we will see what he has to say for himself if he does, in fact, appear. So tag deadline day today, 3 p.m. Central Time, as we sit here locally in Nashville. Obviously, the only decision to be made with the local professional football team is to tag or not tag Harold Landry. Now, one would think that he would classify as a linebacker, which would put them on the hook for $18 million and change if they were to do so. Do you think tagging Harold makes the most sense?
No, not from a cap standpoint, but I think it is the right move for this player specifically. I just don't think the sample size of him being an elite player is big enough for me to go out there and say, let's do $70 million guaranteed right now, which is kind of the going rate for these edge rushers. I like the idea of the wait and see approach here, even though the 18-7 is hard to take on in 2022 for this franchise. But yeah, I think with the quarterback position in flux in 2023, the running back position in flux, Julio Jones in flux, a lot of question marks coming after 2022. I wouldn't want to sink too much right now into this edge rusher specifically, knowing, we did this with Dupree last offseason.
Right. You study this as well as anybody does. It would put them in the top 5 of positional spending if they were to commit substantial dollars to both Harold and Bud Dupree. But it's pretty rare to see a team that's already delegated the big money contract to one player at that position hand out another the very next year, correct?
Very. Even if they think that they messed up on part one, right? I think you have to get through that and understand where you are with one more season of the Dupree before you make a big move like this. So the placeholder tag, it's not ideal, but I think it is the right move for this franchise in this current window. Mike
Ginnitti of Spotrac is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. We're talking salary cap implications on franchise tag deadline day. What are the details of the Julio Jones contract, Mike, that people need to know as they consider the viability of his place on this roster moving forward?
Yeah, the guarantees are almost gone. That's the best part of this. He's essentially just a high cap at this point, and I expect there'd be some consideration of another restructure if necessary, if you want to bring in a couple of fish in the next couple of weeks here. But to me, he's hanging on here just with 2 years left, and I would imagine that we're talking about moving on from him next offseason, unless he has one of those monster seasons that makes us think an extension is coming. Contractually speaking, though, this is it. This is probably the last year of this contract, whether he's with Tennessee or not.
Should they choose to do away with him this year, is there a date that's set that makes sense to move on from Julio Jones after?
Right. If the draft goes well, and there's obviously a deep free agent market for wide receivers out there, so if there's a chance to replace him, you can move on from him after June 1st and free yourself up, $9.5 million with a release, a little bit more with a trade. So if you slow play this process and try to kind of backfill that wide receiver arsenal, there is an out if that's sitting there in June or July. So it's possible. I tend to think with what you gave up in terms of the draft, the trade capital, that you're going to play this out for one more year and see where it is.
That's the feeling here locally, too. I just want to make people aware of the options that they have at their disposal so we can try and have a more informed conversation around this stuff. Mike Ginnitti of Spotrac, our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. Where do you think the greatest value positionally lies in free agency this year? It looks to be a deep tight end class as far as talent that's available, maybe not like star level, but starter to replacement level starters. Where is the greatest value in this free agency class ahead?
Yeah, that was going to be my answer initially, is the tight end market. It is very deep, and I think it's going to get deeper with some releases over the next couple of days here. Obviously, there's a truckload of wide receivers wherever you look, trades, free agents, the draft. So that should suppress value a little bit, right? You should be able to get a couple of guys in the second or third tier of free agency at a really fair market value price. And then I'd look into that secondary because the cornerback market, there's some older players there that still have a lot of bang for their buck there. that I think that price generally falls off a truck after age 30. So if you want to think about a guy like a Joe Hayden, obviously a Stephon Gilmore's a little bit younger, there's going to be some guys getting $3-4 million contracts that are going to surprise the heck out of us come September 1 here. So that secondary is deep in terms of free agency and also in the first round of this draft. And that generally when there's supply, you can see those numbers drop. So I'd put those three positions kind of at the forefront of this conversation over the next couple of weeks.
Now, you tweeted out at Spotrac, SPOTRAC, if you want to throw them a follow. Very informative, particularly at this time of year. You tweeted out about an hour ago, there's now a $22 million difference in average pay between the quarterback and any other position in football. No other position in sports can claim something like this. The quarterback reigns supreme. Are we ever going to see that gap narrowed as far as average annual pay is concerned, Mike? Because, I mean, we talk about the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks are the most positioned. Quarterbacks are going to win MVP until the end of time. Is that indicative of how the market should be based on the value of that specific position?
I think right now, I think it is fair right now. I'm not going to say $50 million for Aaron Rodgers is fair, but it is what it is. That's what it took to keep him in-house. I think we might see that gap close by the exact same team in the next 3 days. I think Davante Adams might get a $30 million per year contract in the next couple of days just to keep him around and to lower that tag cap hit. So he may be the next non-quarterback in terms of average pay. And then after that, we're going to start seeing the edge rushers hit that mark. We're going to see Nick Bosa get $30 million a year and a couple of those kind of high drafted players as well following along. But for the rest of the positions, the gap is mammoth right now. And, there is no return at this point until there's a breaking point, until the cap, stays neutral or the league, stops making big buco revenue bucks. This is where it is. The money's in the quarterback, and I'm sure you understand that with the radio side of it.
Yeah, no kidding. If I took Green Bay off the board, Mike, whose offseason are you most interested to see the decisions that they have to make financially?
Yeah, Dallas is right up there because, somehow they're a Super Bowl contender, but also have all of these question marks all over the roster, specifically the defensive side of the ball.
Is that just the Cowboys? That drives me crazy. Yeah. It drives me insane.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's just the Yankees and the Cowboys being the Yankees and the Cowboys. But I put the Chargers in this conversation because they're good. They're on the fringe. It feels like they're right there, and they have top 5 cap space right now. So if they believe in this coaching staff, obviously if they believe in this quarterback, they can really start to push this envelope and spend, drafts properly, and really load up and maybe have a Cincinnati Bengals type run here in 2022.
That's a very important qualifier, though, given how their season ended, if they believe in this coaching staff, because Brandon Staley, I believe to be a good coach, but the way that ended against the Raiders was less than ideal. Mike, thank you for the time. As always, I'm sure we'll catch up again as things start to spin up and free agency begins next week. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Anytime.
That's Mike Ginnitti of Spotrac breaking it down on a salary cap side of things. So Harold does not make sense on a tag. But what Mike outlined is that with Harold as a case study, he is the exact kind of player who does get a tag because of the guarantees. He said somewhere in the area of $70 million guaranteed is what players at that position are typically getting. So, we've asked you this question before, but I'm curious to know if the new information at your disposal has changed your position on this at all. Do you want to keep Harold Landry with the Tennessee Titans? Understanding that 18 and change is going to be a hard cap hit if you do tag him. If you tag him, you still have the opportunity to work out a deal. Green Bay very much hopes to work out a deal, but it could cost $30 million a year for Davante Adams. Huh?
Happened with Derrick Henry.
Sure. And those circumstances were different, right? That was pandemic free agency.
Yeah.
That was wild. I honestly think Derrick, had that not, nobody could have predicted what happened there, but I think Derrick could have held out for more had the uncertainty of that not been hovering over everything.
That felt like a good relationship on both sides, right? Like, we'll bookmark it with the tag and work on it down the road.
Yeah, there was trust.
Yeah.
There was trust there. And so you have to have that same trust if you're Harold Landry because, listen, players hate the tag. Players want guarantees. Players want security. Players want to know that their organization is going to reward them for the efforts that they have put in and have made. I'm not saying that Harold Landry's production is going to fall off a cliff if they franchise tag him and they leave him there. I think Harold's going to still recognize the opportunity to go out and earn himself a big money deal. He will get paid at some point, barring catastrophe, which of course comes with injuries that tend to happen in football. And to Harold's credit, he has been unusually available. He hasn't missed a start in the last 3 years. But again, that's why you give this man a contract. Do you let him walk, or do you commit substantial money to this dude, understanding that your future gets a lot more complicated? 615-737-1045. That's the number. Alex is in Nashville up first. Hello, Alex.
Hey, Buck. Absolutely have to tag Harold. Got to tag him, but we can't let him play under the tag. So you either got to work a deal, or if a deal's not going to get done, you got to trade him. You cannot let a player, a homegrown player like that, to have that kind of statistics, just walk without a franchise tag in hopes of a deal. You either got to get him to a long-term deal or get something for him, and the franchise tag buys you time, because I do think there will be a trade market for a player of his caliber.
Thanks for the call, Alex. Lucas is looking up right now. If you can, I'm not sure. I don't recall off the top of my head if you can trade a franchise tagged player. Something, without having the rule book in front of me, we can look this up during the commercial break. I don't know if that's a possibility. I can't think of a recent example where that's happened. I feel like teams would do that more often if that was at their disposal. Something about that makes me think there has to be protections in place to keep that from happening to players, because the Titans did that with a fifth-year option and Adoree Jackson, and the league immediately changed the rule. Well, they didn't trade him. They cut him after picking up the fifth-year option. But still, protections are now in place to prevent teams from doing that. I've gone back and forth on this. I do think he's a priority. I do think it's so important to keep the best thing that you do as whole as humanly possible. The best thing that the Tennessee Titans has presently constructed, including Harold Landry, do is get after the quarterback. I maintain that that is their best route to a Super Bowl, with a high-end pass rush and quality players at a starting level with, assuming that Rashad Weaver can play, decent depth behind their front-end starters and along the defensive line as well. They've found a couple of guys, Larrell Murchison, T.R. Tart, guys who can play behind your top-line guys. The more we get into this, without a long-term extension that's clear and obvious for everybody, and understanding that teams are going to be reticent to give a player like that $70 million guaranteed, I can totally see a world where they move on from him. But we'll keep track of this throughout the course of today. I feel like it's going to come down to the wire for Tennessee and Harold Landry either way. T-Dog is in Nashville up next. Hello, T-Dog.
What's up, Buck? How you doing, brother?
I'm good, boss.
Hey, my first time calling your show, a long time listening to The Zone, 14 years, something like that, man.
Appreciate that.
You're great, man. You're doing a great job. Glad to have you here. Let's just talk common sense. I'm not a sports analyst in the sports world and all that kind of stuff, but something that we always lack in Tennessee is just common sense, okay? We look at Harold Landry and what he's done over the years. He's a big part of this defense. You almost made it to the FC playoff. You don't let anybody on that defense go. You bring that defense back if you want to kind of even look like you're going to smell the Super Bowl. You want Aaron Rodgers in Nashville. So guess what? Ryan Tannehill is awesome. I love him. But Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. It's just common sense stuff. We're not sports people. I'm just a regular dude, and I'm just saying, hey, if you want to win the Super Bowl, you go after Aaron Rodgers, John Robb. And then also, you don't let anybody on that defense walk, because they did something monumental that they didn't do 2 years ago with Jadeveon Clowney and all the other guys. These guys sniffed the Super Bowl. Don't change anything. Bring Harold Landry back. He's proved it. Why would you even just play around with that? So that's my 2 cents, man. Common sense. Peace.
Thanks for the call. We do have precedent, by the way, for a tag and trade situation too, actually, in fairly recent memory. Frank Clark a couple of years ago with the Seattle Seahawks, and then D Ford and the circumstance, I believe, was he a tag and trade to the Chiefs? Because he's a Niner right now, if I recall correctly. But there is precedent for a tag and trade situation. To T-Dog's point, there are some parts that you're going to have to let go of on defense. I don't know that Dane Cruikshank's coming back in free agency. He's going to make a lot more money than a role player, than you can afford to pay a role player in your cap situation. But we can talk about this coming up next, because I think there's one player on defense that they can do without, and in fact they need to do without, because there are considerable savings attached to him. We'll tell you who that is next. Welcome back. Buck Reising here with you until 1 o'clock. I love this song. Crack it up. Dolly, did you watch the ACMs last night? Are you into that?
No.
No? No American Country Music Awards for you?
I mean, how many country music awards are there? Like 9?
You know, it's a good question because CMA, we should know this given that, I mean, we're like a block from CMAs.
The CMAs, the CMTs, the ACMs, the whole alphabet.
Yeah, sure. I just, you were very, very dismissive. I'm sure there's plenty of people here locally that watch the ACMs.
Yeah, probably.
Because I saw, and maybe this is a product of my timeline, but like our buddy Jason Fitz, who's one of ESPN's talking heads, formerly the musical director and violinist for the band Perry, and who could still absolutely shred. He was like live tweeting it like I would like a Titans game, and I thought that was very enjoyable. We probably should have thought of that and had Fitzy on today.
Anyway. We love a good fiddle.
We do. What is our buddies at Bear? They were playing the intermission at one of the TV timeouts at the Stadium Series game. What do they call it? Banjo Daddy. Love a good fiddle. Love a good banjo. 615-737-1045. All right. So, told you we had a call earlier. I believe T-Dog was the name. T-Dog called us and said that he wants them to run back the entire Titans defense, Harold Landry included. And I'll tell you one name in particular that I think makes the most sense to go ahead and scrap. Now, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but Jackrabbit Jenkins, at this point, the savings are well worth it, assuming that Caleb Farley can play, which is a very big assumption at this point. I thought that was one of the more interesting conversations because we asked John about it, John Robinson, when he was on the radio show. And then it wasn't a podium topic with Vrabel, but we got sidebar with Vrabel in a way that I'm sure he delighted in, more media time. But we got sidebar with Mike, and he was talking about, Caleb's done everything that we've asked him to. We thought he made good progress on the way back from the back injury, and then unfortunately an ACL tear in the one game that he was set to start, if my memory serves correctly, in about the middle of the season. And so you can only, you can't, that's just horrendous luck. And what Vrabel said about him was that he's got all the potential in the world, but nobody likes to talk about potential, which I don't know if I was reading too much into it, but that kind of stood out to me because we are all trafficking in, just as we were with Jeffrey Simmons. We're all trafficking in potential with these guys, especially where you've missed so much time across several years now, opt-outs, injuries, or otherwise. I don't know what Caleb Farley is capable of doing. All I know is that if you were to cut Jackrabbit Jenkins as one of the primary cap casualties, you would have a savings this year of, just under $7 million. He would count on the books. His cap hit goes up $6 million from year over year. He was against the cap for 4.6 last year. If he was to remain on the roster at 34, it would be a figure of 10.1. You need to recoup that money. I don't think that he was outright bad. I just think that you have to be able to rely on that depth. Caleb Farley, Christian Fulton, and Elijah Molden, you have to look at that and say, all right, at some point you got to take the training wheels off of this thing. And there has been an inordinate amount of training wheels for the Titans secondary and really just the entire team because John Robinson is weeping last week at the Combine because of the stress and the issues that they went through putting together a roster that consisted of 91 total players. Like it's a problem, whether, you want to look into the tiers too much or not at all. I think that's a matter of personal opinion, and everybody's entitled to their personal opinion. But yeah, Jackrabbit, respectfully, it's time because it goes in order of cap savings. Jackrabbit, Roger Saffold, Taylor Lewan. Two of those guys are infinitely more important or infinitely harder to replace than the third. And in Jackrabbit Jenkins, theoretically, his replacement's already on the roster. When we come back, we're going to get into the tight end position because the salary cap manipulations are going to be interesting. And with free agency getting ready to open next week, tag deadline coming down at 3 p.m. Central Time today, the options at the tight end position have become much, much more limited. Now, I've already told you several weeks ago who is going to be regularly linked to the Tennessee Titans in free agency this year. But if you need a refresher, I'll tell you about that player coming up next.
It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers is going to remain in Green Bay. Initially reported by Pat McAfee and followed up by Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network. Rap Sheet reporting that Rodgers has agreed to terms on a 4-year, $200 million deal that will make him the highest paid player in NFL history. Worth noting that McAfee has contradicted this report, saying those numbers are off base. Rap Sheet followed that up, saying that the Packers are expected to franchise tag wide receiver Davante Adams. Also, Bucks receiver Chris Godwin reportedly expected to be franchise tagged as well. The deadline coming up at 3 p.m. for NFL teams to tag players. The Titans' primary candidate is outside linebacker Harold Landry. SEC basketball postseason awards are out. Bruce Pearl of Auburn is the coach of the year. Oscar Tshiebwe of Kentucky, the player of the year. And Jordan Wright of Vanderbilt, the scholar athlete of the year. Tennessee Santiago Vescovi and Vanderbilt Scottie Pippen Jr. both on the SEC first team. Also in college hoops news, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution has reported Georgia head coach Tom Crean is set to part ways with the school after the SEC tournament. Crean is 6-25 in his fourth year at UGA and has not had a winning season. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
I guess it's the final hour. Welcome in. Welcome back. If you've been hanging with us so far today, been a fun one, and we're not done yet. Jump in if you like, 615-737-1045. That's the number that you call. If you want to talk to me, if you want to talk to Lucas, Lucas has nothing better to do. You can have a full conversation back there with him if you like.
The worst.
Sorry, buddy. 615-737-1045. That is the number. So, as we kind of look ahead to tag deadline. By the way, Adam Sparks of the Knoxville News Sentinel going to be here in just a second. We got a bunch of different stuff to talk about. Adam Sparks, to talk about with Adam Sparks, given all the different things that are happening in Knoxville. Tennessee doesn't play men's. Tennessee does not play in the SEC tournament until Friday. You have recruiting visits that were really interesting over the weekend at the quarterback position, and some new hires made on Rocky Top that we have to discuss. But for now, I'd like to stay with the free agent market and what the tight end position currently looks like. So you've had the biggest names at that position in Njoku, Gesicki, and Dalton Schultz, the free agents who were most eligible for a big contract off of their rookie deals. But the depth of this class in free agency is pretty substantial. Rob Gronkowski, Evan Ingram, Rob Tonyan, Eric Ebron, Tyler Conklin, C.J. Uzoma, the Titan killer, Gerald Everett, Hayden Hurst, O.J. Howard, Jared Cook, oh God, and Kyle Rudolph. Oh, and Jimmy Graham. How old is Jimmy Graham? Jimmy Graham has to be 33, 34 at least.
Yeah, he's been around.
I feel like Jimmy Graham was old when he was with the Saints, and he's been on two different teams since then?
He's 35.
Yeah, I was going to say, good for Jimmy. So, of those names, and I do think that there are some interesting ones, and you probably need to you do need to get a couple of tight ends this offseason, given that Ferkser, Pruitt, and Swaim are all unrestricted free agents. So, which of those names that I've just read you makes the most sense? Well, people are obviously going to gravitate towards Rob Gronkowski. Now, Gronk is at a different stage in his career. He needs WD-40 to be able to make it up and down the field in any kind of efficient fashion. He is, right now he's still working out at the Bucks facility, according to Bruce Arians, as recently as last week. Would you want him here in Nashville as the primary tight end option? I don't know what the answer to that question is. I think that he's considerably better than the other options you had. I don't know if that's a result of playing with Tom Brady his entire career, or if he would be able to elevate Ryan Tannehill in a considerable way that makes a big difference for the comfort level and the security of that quarterback, because that's what it's all about at this point. I think that when you look at the tight ends that the Titans are going to be in discussion for, I continue to come back to Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz, who they were rumored to be sniffing around when the Eagles had him up for sale. Arizona ultimately did the deal to bring him in. Now he's an unrestricted free agent. He's in his 30s. He's still productive. And he can give you a tight end one option right out of the gate. That's starter caliber tight end quality. I think he's the player, plus a draft pick and probably another either draft pick or lower tier free agent, whether you bring back one of the three who's walking off your roster or explore different options, because there's great depth out there. I think that Zach Ertz is the name that you're going to hear most discussed around the Tennessee Titans this offseason as far as the tight end free agency are concerned. The distinguished gentleman on YouTube says Tyler Conklin, no brainer. And I'll be honest, until I had seen this list today, I was not aware of Tyler Conklin, who has spent his career with the Minnesota Vikings. I did not know much about him. He's a player out of Central Michigan. He's 26 years old. He's not had an overwhelmingly productive career. In fact, he's coming off a career year, so fortunately timed. But he's been in Minnesota since 2018 and really didn't become a featured player until last season. He had 61 catches last year. Prior to that, he had 19, 8, and 5. So you're talking about a pretty unproven player. Now, maybe that's just peaking at the right time, and if it is, good for him. But I think that Ertz, because people are going to, I think there's going to be a conversation around what's Ertz going to cost. RJ in Phoenix wants Jonnu Smith back. The Patriots fans would be happy to give him to you because he's been a bit of a disaster there. But right now, I think Zach Ertz is the player that you're going to hear most closely discussed with the Tennessee Titans. I think that position is going to be critical this offseason. Wide receivers, you have in theory. Could you use more? Of course you could. But tight end is something that you have nothing. You have you literally have nothing there outside of Tommy Hudson right now. Tommy Hudson, whose season was ended last year due to injury, and by the way, did have some promise. He will probably factor in to some degree. Now, Ertz was making $10 million last year for Arizona on a previous contract with the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think he's a $10 million player at this stage in his career, but depending on what the market tells him he's worth, it could get back into that neighborhood. I don't know what the finances are going to be unclear, basically, until they start to trim stuff around the salary cap. And there's going to be a lot of different things that happen between then and now that determine what they're able to afford. But, what Jonnu Smith, when he left, I did not think was going to have such a substantial impact on this roster, negatively. I don't think that's just a Jonnu Smith thing alone. Ferkser fell off a cliff. Anthony Ferkser. And really, he started to show some signs in the second half of the season where it felt like their connection was starting to go again. And he had an injury early in the year that may have derailed him also, just to be fair to him. But we can all say that they rode with Anthony Ferkser, Jeff Swaim, and Michael Pruitt at the tight end position, feeling comfortable at the start of the season. And I think we can all look at that as a categorical failure, yes?
Yeah, Ferkser got his opportunity, right? It didn't take advantage.
Blew it. And again, the injury has to be considered, but for one reason or another, Anthony Ferkser didn't work. So you know that you cannot discount that position the way that you have. You skated for a lot of years because Delaney Walker was so consistent, so reliable, and until his ankle blew up, you had a great situation there. And a guy that was, he's still not technically retired. I don't I don't know if Delaney's campaign to try and get back in the league is still ongoing. But yeah, Zach Ertz, to me, feels like that's going to be the move. 615-737-1045. This could change 10 different times before we get to free agency next week. The buzz in Indianapolis it was really so much about the veteran players until Jordan Davis his numbers went crazy and the wide receiver 40 times went nuts. Like people were talking more about the veteran quarterbacks than they were the rookie quarterbacks or the prospective rookie quarterbacks because that's the more talent at the position, at the most important position. I think that when you look at the buzz around the free agents at this time, there's going to be now that teams have money to spend, there's going to be a bit of a bidding war in a way that we didn't really get to experience the last 2 years under pandemic-stricken finances. The money's not going down this year. It's going up by the max, $25 million on average, just about for every NFL team. And I think that when you look at this tight end position, $10 million may not be, $10 million for Zach Ertz at this stage in his career sounds like a lot, but I really think that there's still a value to be had there. So we'll get into this on the other side. We're also going to talk to Adam Sparks about everything that's going on in Knoxville. He, of course, of the Knoxville News-Sentinel. A lot to get to, and I want to put a bow on this Calvin Ridley conversation because there's some details from Mike Garafolo yesterday that I think you all need to hear. That's next. Welcome back on this Tuesday. Lucas was asking me, give me some powerful women to come back to on International Women's Day. Nobody more powerful than the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin.
Doesn't get better than that.
I don't know if Adam Sparks can live up to that entrance, but I know he'll try. Adam Sparks of the Knoxville News Sentinel joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Hello, buddy.
Hey, guys. How we doing?
We are doing well. I'm alleviated of any more Aaron Rodgers rumors, at least for the foreseeable future. So I feel like a weight has been lifted from my shoulders.
Wait, I've been offline. Did that turn today?
Oh yeah, he's going back to the Packers. I don't have to deal with it anymore. I can breathe again, Adam.
Wait, but I thought he was. If he's going to be living in like Brentwood or something, he has to play for the local NFL team.
Wait! What are you alleging? That there was no tie ever to begin with a man purchasing property in a part of the country? That means he must play for the local professional football team?
There's no way that guy can afford more than one home. I don't see any way that happens.
Oh, God. Well, listen, you've been pretty busy. This is not normally a time when there's Vols news all over the place, but it's been pretty nuts to keep up with. I guess I want to start with the cancellation of the orange and white game, Adam. Neyland Stadium currently under renovation, and I was reading your report earlier today that they're just not going to have the orange and white game. Are there any lasting implications of them not having a spring football game?
No, I mean, they were looking for a while. Nissan was the obvious place. They could not get the dates. They could not align the dates when they wanted to have it and when Nissan would be available. I think Chattanooga was a possibility. I've even had people since we came up with the story yesterday that have said, why couldn't they do it at one of the high schools? Well, if you're doing that, then you're going to have to cap attendance because you can only fit so many thousand in a place like that, and then you have to move a lot of things out there. And so, I mean, they're what they want to have is recruits there to see the scrimmage and all that, and those recruits are still going to be there. They're going to have a scrimmage on April 9th when media will be there. Players' family will be there. Recruits will be there. It's just fans will have to stay outside and watch it on some video screens, and they'll tailgate and all that. It won't be great, but it'll be for 1 year. And I actually haven't heard that many UT fans just infuriated over it, maybe frustrated, but they understand that the reason for it is the Neyland Stadium renovations. And so they'll be happier, I guess, come fall when they see the renovations.
Well, in the meantime, you can take the recruits, the football recruits, to a basketball game. I'm going to butcher Nico's last name, the quarterback recruit that Vols fans were fawning over in their regular season finale against Arkansas. Have you mastered the pronunciation yet?
No, not even going to try. He will, if he comes here, he'll be Nico until he uses up his eligibility or his draft. He'll only be Nico. I don't try Polynesian names that much if I can help it.
Iamaleava. Say it with me, Buck. Iamaleava.
Iamaleava?
Yeah. It's just, you just read it right along with
Oh, no. I mean, I could get it after a while, but I'm trying to think. We went basically 3 years of Jarrett Garantano with mispronunciations as far as his last name was concerned.
Vescovy?
Santiago Vescovy, the whole thing. So I look forward to, if he commits, the East Tennessee pronunciations of that particular last name. What was the latest on his recruiting visit, and where do they stand as far as his commitment is concerned?
Well, I mean, he's said all the things you expect these guys to say, which is, love the family atmosphere, and I like where the program's going, and the offense looks fun, and all that, and it's a lot of canned answers. I mean, USC's after him, Alabama's after him, and a couple of other quarterbacks, obviously. The last that I heard, Oregon was probably closer to the top of his list. This is the problem with recruiting in this era, is that you can't take the fit of the offense or geographically where he wants to go or his connection with the coach or his chance to get the NFL. You can't necessarily put that at the top of the list of where you think guys are going to go, and predicting that. It's NIL. So if he goes up to Oregon and Nike or whoever offers him a lot of NIL money and he comes to Knoxville and he's offered less NIL money, that I'm not saying necessarily that kid, but you almost have to assume that every kid now, especially 5 stars, are keeping that in mind, and we just don't know how those meetings go.
You know, maybe there's not enough information. Adam Sparks of the Knoxville News Sentinel, by the way, our guest here on 104.5 The Zone. A lot of things happening in East Tennessee, so we're covering a lot of ground with Adam today. You bring up NIL deals and things of that nature. Has there been a substantial, impact that you've been able to see that NIL has had on the University of Tennessee? Like, I know about the collectives and just kind of the exploratory process that we've all kind of been in, but has there been a tangible effect to you?
Not yet. I mean, more of it is just rumors, and more of it's assumptions that we all sort of make, that if a guy goes into the transfer portal and then suddenly he comes back, it's, well, he got some NIL money. He goes into the portal and goes somewhere else. Well, he got NIL money. He signs at another school, or he's committed to Tennessee, then he goes somewhere else, or he's committed to somewhere else and he goes to Tennessee. It's always NIL money, and probably a third of that is true, but we now make these assumptions, and there is some big money thrown around from Tennessee's collective, Spire Sports, and all the collectives, especially around the SEC. But we really don't know. I mean, usually when I hear a number thrown out of what a player is getting, I usually take 10 off of the end. Because I think all these things are exaggerated.
Yeah.
And we heard the clip of, out at Texas A&M with Jimbo, with a lot of assumptions that are made. But I don't quite know where this is going. I think a lot of people are seeing sort of the underlying ramifications of this that you wouldn't necessarily connect. Like, for example, the spring game, they're not going to have like a fan day type thing where you get autographs signed by all the players, like we see fan days all around the country. When we were growing up, you hand them the football and every guy on the team signs it. You're not seeing those because autograph sessions are now NIL events.
Right.
So you're not going to ask a player to go sign for free when he can go to wherever the restaurant or business is that he has an NIL deal with, where he signs autographs there and he gets paid a few $100s. So that's just one of the small things that changes in the game now.
What do we need to know about new wide receivers coach Kelsey Pope, who replaces Cody Burns, joining the New Orleans Saints staff in the same position?
He's pretty highly thought of as a guy that was sort of on an upward trajectory. 29 years old, had been at Tennessee Tech, Gardner-Webb, was a really, really good wide receiver himself just a few years ago at Samford. He was a guy that he's been an analyst here for a year. He was sort of the understudy of Cody Burns, the wide receivers coach who took the job with the Saints. If he didn't get this job, I think it's reasonable to think he probably would have landed a job at maybe like a mid-major or maybe another Power 5. So, he probably would have been a candidate for this job anyway, maybe in a couple of years. The fact that Cody Burns left, they're getting him now. And fairly affordable. I mean, that's not what you base it on, but he's a guy that you're getting on the upward trajectory of his career, and really good rapport with the wide receivers. That's important in this offense. He already knows what they're looking for in recruiting, so it's a sort of seamless transition into spring practice. And a big thing is that Cedric Tillman apparently has a really, really good rapport with him. So if you want one guy that likes his hire, you would like your 1,000-yard wide receiver to like it.
In a perfect world, Adam Sparks. Read him at the Knoxville News Sentinel. Follow him on the socials at Adam Sparks on Twitter. Thank you, buddy.
All right, we'll see you.
Okay. I love the fact that he came on here throwing shade right out the gate about the Aaron Rodgers thing. That makes me so happy in my soul. I'm reading through a lot of the Rodgers stuff because by the way, this has ripple effects all over the place as we kind of pivot back into the NFL portion of our conversation today. What the hell are the Broncos going to do at quarterback? What are the Steelers doing? Is Russell Wilson still in play? Is Carson Wentz going to be the prize quarterback of the free agent offseason? Ew.
Like, does this count as the first domino in the quarterback carousel, or is this basically picking up the first domino and putting it in your pocket and then waiting for another one to fall.
It's knocking down whatever you've made with the dominoes and taking them home. Like there's no dominoes. I mean, here's my problem with stuff like this, okay? We did this, was it as recently as last offseason? Was Deshaun Watson embroiled in great legal scandal at this time last year? I can't recall at what point the 22 or the snowballing of civil suits alleging sexual assault and misconduct started to come down. I can't remember at what point, but I know that Deshaun Watson was like one of the first ones out here in recent memory saying, yeah, I would like out of here, like enough of this already. And that never happened. Now, different circumstances, but it became a conversation around Aaron Rodgers once out. That didn't happen. The only one that actually had movement was Carson Wentz because the Philadelphia Eagles were shedding cap space all over the place, and the Colts desperately needed some kind of a fix at quarterback after Phil Rivers retired. There is so many different layers to this, but like we get so bent out of shape about the quarterbacks and the movement this offseason. We came up with a list months ago. It was still during the season, or maybe the Titans season had just ended, where I had a list of 10 teams that could see quarterback movement this year. Packers were one of them. Seattle as well. There's been no indication. You haven't heard anything about Russell Wilson. Aaron Rodgers has completely enveloped every free agency conversation, every NFL conversation, basically, with every once in a while you'll get an Amari Cooper is going to get cut from the Cowboys. But everything else has been Rodgers, and Rodgers. The biggest movement that we're going to see this offseason, it feels like, is Garoppolo, maybe. But have you been paying attention to anything happening in San Francisco? Like, people are really down on the idea of Trey Lance being the guy already. We're talking about his teammate from North Dakota State, Dylan Radins, and his lack of readiness as an NFL prospect, but in an infinitely more important position and a team that traded up considerably to go get this dude. I don't know that Garoppolo's going to be out either. I'm fascinated to see what happens with this NFL quarterback news cycle, but like we work ourselves into a lather, basically, at that position every year. And every year it feels like, just like the trade deadline, every year there feels to be infinitely more conversation than there is actual transactions. And that's exactly what this Rodgers thing signifies for me. 615-737-1045. Jump in on the conversation if you like. If you are unaware, Aaron Rodgers returning to the Green Bay Packers. It is being right now reported as a 4-year, $200 million deal, but right now that report initially from Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network is being disputed. I don't know. I mean, of the teams that he may have gone to, and by the way, Rap Sheet is currently being questioned, so maybe not the one you want to cite right out of the gate, but he put out a tweet earlier saying this was no easy decision. Rodgers considered retirement and the Broncos. In the end, the Packers get it done. They commit to Aaron Rodgers for many years. So, what is missing from that statement? We're going to see if Lucas is actually listening to the radio show. What's missing from that statement that I just read?
The Titans.
The Titans and the Steelers. So 2 of the 4 teams that Florio had mentioned in his report are apparently nowhere to be found in the middle of all of this. Aaron Rodgers was, it seems, always going to go back to the Packers. The idea of considering retirement being real, that's an interesting nugget, but still, I don't know what the rest of these teams are going to do in free agency or when the trade market, if the trade market ever actually starts to pick up. Because I'm not trading for Carson Wentz if I'm an NFL general manager looking for a quarterback, because I know you're going to cut him. Every one of Chris Ballard's public comments makes it seem like they hate that guy.
They've devalued him so much.
So, I mean, I appreciate that you're still out here seeking a trade, but like, buddy, at least try and spruce him up a little bit.
They've taken away any value for a potential trade and probably just taken a wrecking ball to any confidence he might have had left.
Yeah. Nick Ewing says in the Zone TV chat on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, or Twitch, so how do I book the Rodgers Airbnb during football season? You can look up your Williamson County listings right now. I mean, the Packers give him the best chance to win a Super Bowl, no? Of any of the teams that were even tangentially being discussed.
And by that, you mean Steelers or Broncos, essentially?
I think over the Steelers, certainly. If the Steelers were even real, it seems like that was just kind of lobbed in there. There would never really seem to be any momentum for Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. And what Mike Ginnitti of Spotrac brought up earlier is that he felt it seemed like an agent just giving Florio a bunch of different teams to see if there could be a market that was actually drummed up or to give them some negotiating power against the Green Bay Packers for what would be a $50 million average annual value on a 4-year extension.
Yeah, the idea that Rodgers would have a better chance to win a Super Bowl in Denver in the AFC over Green Bay is insanity. It's just wrong.
I don't know. I don't. They have a collection of skill position players there that is criminally underrated because their quarterbacks stink.
Sure, but look at the obstacles in front of them in Denver as opposed to Green Bay. As far as a conference,
no, the division is a nightmare. Like you would be scratching and clawing. You may see both wild card teams or 3 wild card teams coming out of the AFC West, right? Mahomes, Herbert, and maybe Derek Carr if he ends up staying there. Derek Carr has been another name that has been discussed as far as will the new coaching staff be able to vibe with him and if there was any movement there. But you've seen zero conversation around Derek Carr. Like Derek Carr is a vastly more reasonable name to lob out there for teams looking for quarterback help. Like a guy who you could actually trade for, who you could put together a package realistically that's not going to break your bank. And yet Derek Carr is miles less sexy than Aaron Rodgers. Not physically, of course, because Aaron Rodgers, the hair, the aesthetic for me is not good. Now you have Packers players out there on social media saying, I tried to tell y'all. All right, Aaron Jones, you were just as scared as everybody else was.
Jerry Jeudy of the Broncos just tweeted a sad emoji. Poor guy. Got to deal with Drew Lock for another year.
No, they're not keeping Drew Lock. They got to get rid. Well, I guess
you would think, but
they don't have an option.
Imagine he'd be on the roster.
He was a 19 draft pick. He's a second-round pick. He's a second-round pick, though. So
yeah, he fell.
He's still got another year on his contract. I'm fascinated by this quarterback market, even though there's nothing to be fascinated by. They're all going to go back to their same places, and Wentz is going to be out there, the next Jared Goff quarterbacking the Detroit Lions while Dan Campbell tries to get him to bite a kneecap.
And Mitch Trubisky's getting the bag.
Hey, he's getting $10 million.
Wherever he goes.
Allegedly, Mitch Trubisky. This is why this is such a great gig. Look up for me Chase Daniels. I think it's Chase Daniel, but look up for me his career earnings. Because that guy, Mitch Trubisky, is about to go down an infinitely more lucrative and comfortable path if he chooses to do the Chase Daniel thing, which is just make piles of money as a backup quarterback. $10 million a year for Mitch. That's wild to me.
Daniel, career earnings approximately $16 million.
Only what? No.
That's according to Pro Football Talk.
That can't be right.
Or Pro Football Network, excuse me.
No. $16 million? No, that's not right at all. I look it up on Spotrac or Over the Cap because they'll have a more concise figure there. He's made infinitely more than $16 million. Hell, his last deal may have been for a total of $16 million, as I think as the Bears backup quarterback.
Okay, yeah, 38, close to $39 million.
Yeah, no, I mean double, right? Like he's made an incredible career without having thrown very many passes at all. Nick Ewing says still $16 million. Way too much. Listen, good money if you can make it.
While we're talking about it, Josh Reynolds has agreed to terms on a 2-year extension per his agent with the Detroit Lions.
Oh, God. Josh, did you find that weird at all? I know we didn't really spend much time on the whole Josh Reynolds thing. I don't remember. That seems like eons ago.
He did seem a little rejuvenated to be playing for...
Oh, they beat the Cardinals.
The second worst team in football.
They weren't even the worst team. The Jags, man. Every time. Every time they can't get out of their own way. All right. Well, congratulations to Josh Reynolds on getting to stay more years with Jared Goff. I hope it gives you all of the happiness and all of the wealth that you were looking for as you play in Detroit. Last call for phone calls coming up next. We'll do the polls and we'll wrap this up on a Tuesday. I'm Buck Reising. It's 104.5 The Zone. I'll tell you who just got good. I don't want to cut the music off because the music is tremendous, but I need the terrible breaking news sound that I despise. Give it to me again today.
Breaking sports news on 104.5 The Zone.
Adam Schefter. He's been lying in the weeds. He's been waiting. He sat out the Aaron Rodgers thing, but he's back, baby. Blockbuster. After weeks of negotiations in one of the largest trades in NFL history, the Seattle Seahawks and Denver Broncos have agreed to terms for a deal involving Super Bowl winning quarterback Russell Wilson. Sources tell ESPN trade is pending a physical and Wilson's approval because, remember, he has a no-trade clause. Look at that. How about that for Newsday? And that's not the only thing. Mike Williams, the Chargers wide receiver, is going to get a massive extension according to Rap Sheet. But yeah, Adam Schefter with it first. Right after we talked about the lack of movement for the quarterbacks, the biggest quarterback trade in the history of the sport just got done. So, I mean, the AFC. Wow. I was just making a list of quarterbacks who are currently in this conference that the Titans are going to have to slog their way through. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. Am I forgetting anybody? Like at the top of the heap.
I'm sorry, say the list one more time.
Lamar, Burrow, Mahomes, Russell, Herbert, Josh Allen. I don't know that I'm missing anybody that's like, I mean, Tannehill is in there just as a product of being a division winner.
Yeah.
In multiple seasons.
Yeah, I mean, you're not really going to look at the AFC South in that context.
I don't know what the Watson deal is, but yeah, I don't think I'm missing anybody. This is crazy. That's half the teams in the conference that can win a Super Bowl because of the quarterback. I mean, there's not one there that you would say that you would remove because, I mean, maybe Herbert, but they've got top 5 cap space. They can get in on this arms race. This free agency is about to be nuts. This is, we did go through a free agency period last year while we had the radio show. So, you know that this means head on a swivel season. But the way that teams are about to go all in, particularly on this side of the bracket, kids, woo! This is going to be difficult for the Tennessee Titans to try and scratch and claw their way out of. The AFC West, man. Mahomes, Russell, and Herbert. Derek Carr's a fine quarterback. Derek Carr was in the playoffs this year. I guess you got to include Derek Carr.
And he might get paid this offseason.
Carr?
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, there's been reports that they may be closing in on a deal with him. We don't know what's going to happen with him. He may get dealt. He may get paid.
I don't know. I do not know. All I know is that it's going to be inherently complicated to try and get a playoff spot in this wild card. Wild card just got a hell of a lot harder. Because who were the, by the way, last call for phone calls if you want to react to any of this, 615-737-1045 will get you in before we get to the polls here momentarily. By the way, still tag deadline day and no movement yet on Harold Landry, which is, of course, the one that Titans fans are most paying attention to. So the Chargers, by the way, details on Mike Williams' new deal from the LA Chargers. 3 years, $60 million, $40 million guaranteed. $20 million a year for Mike Williams. How pissed is Corey Davis? Making $12.5 because he hit pandemic free agency. And by the way, I just got a text. I believe that's Christian Capozzi. Guess who hosts the Denver Broncos in 2022? Tennessee Titans. So Russ coming in a new uniform is one of the home opponents. So thank you, Christian, if this is in fact Christian. I think it just says Christian. I don't have a last name saved, so I need to make an adjustment to that. But some nameless Christian has just texted me with the schedule for the Titans. Home opponents, Broncos, Raiders, Cowboys, Giants. Man, Bengals, Texans, Colts, Jags. Away opponents, Chiefs, Chargers, Eagles, the football team, now the artists known as the Commanders. Bills, Packers, Texans, Colts, Jags. That's a badass schedule, man. This is going to be wild. All right, let's wrap things up. We got to leave some news for the rest. We had all kinds of news, and the news isn't done because deadline day still ahead right when 3HL comes on the air. Hopefully Blaine and Mickey will get some news in the middle of this too, because this has been wild for us today. Give me the polls.
All right, Dan. I reckon I'll talk about a poll update. This is Carl Childers. There's a young feller. I think he's got the final numbers. Here's the producer of the Buck Reising Show. A feller named Lucas Panzeker.
Sling Blades of the Club.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, powered by Ford, driven by people.
Who got me my new vehicle yesterday. Love Two Rivers Ford. She's sitting out in the parking lot. She looks great.
Very nice. Who are the winners of the sports weekend? Brett Batchelor, who is sitting right over there in the zone green room, says anybody playing in the Players' Championship this week on the PGA Tour, players who finish inside the top 36 will all make six figures. Winner gets $3.6 million.
Oh, wow. That is quite impressive.
Goody says, Sister Jean going back to the dance. Everybody be wary of if you get matched up with Loyola Chicago.
I saw Chris Lowe come on 3HL yesterday and say that Ron Slay needs to be Sister Jean for the Vols. Who would win in a fight, Ron Slay or Sister Jean?
I'm not putting it to a poll. Who are the losers of the sports weekend? Football and other F words. Say Calvin Ridley, who bet $1,500 and lost $11 million. Kenneth says Jordan Love, who will possibly go down as the worst first-round pick of all time.
No.
I think the Tennessee Titans might have something to say about that.
I think Isaiah Wilson currently holds the crown. Jordan Love has at least played football at some point and not got planted on his ass on a field goal block.
What do you think Calvin Ridley's betting username is? Guy Joe Hunk of 3HL says Calvin Ridley, insert social security number here.
Yeah.
Many people, I like this. Artist formerly known as Derrick Henry Stiffarm says on Twitter, _Calvin Ridley. And I like the ones that just say, this is Calvin Ridley.
I'm cackling at a tweet right now from South Texas Titan who says, now, no Aaron Rodgers and no Russell Wilson in Tennessee. The world can return to normal. And now I await the call of somebody to tell me that they should trade for Deshaun Watson.
Well, we've gotten those calls.
Literally yesterday. Yeah. Kill me.
Kill
me,
NFL's policy on gambling antiquated? This news feels ages old. Yeah. 51% say no.
Yeah, been a big week for the league. There hasn't been, we've got away from that in less than 24 hours. One of the most stringent and hardcore suspensions ever handed down to a player who was gambling. Yeah, that's been lost because Russell Wilson is going to be a Bronco next year.
What I do love about the Ridley thing, when he tweeted, I spent $1,500, I don't have a gambling problem.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't have a gambling addiction, but you have a problem.
No, you have a big problem.
That came due to gambling.
Well, no, you have a big problem, not due to don't put this on the gambling, all right? Not just because we are, proud endorsers of DraftKings Sportsbook, but because it's on you. You got to know the rules. You got to know that you can't do that. I'm a reporter. I'm in a fantasy football league with the Titans media that we can't put money on because we cover the league. What do you think is going to be the case if you work in the league? Of course not.
Yeah, nothing against gambling. Just be smarter. You don't have a gambling problem, maybe, but sure don't have a gambling solution.
There's a problem now.
With Njoku, Schultz, and Gesicki out of the picture, which free agent tight end should the Titans be interested in? John says O.J. Howard or Mo Alley Cox. Football and other F words says Gerald Everett.
Yeah, I'm a Zach Ertz proponent. I think it makes sense financially and from a scheme fit. By the way, I think they should do they're going to need to do a lot of different things at the tight end position, but I think that he is particularly appealing.
Many say Gronk. Brock says Kyle Rudolph, who announced the other day he is not retired.
Yeah, Kyle Rudolph, no thank you. I think if you're going to go with older tight ends, Gronk has seen his best days. Zach Ertz can still give you something that you don't necessarily need to rely on Tom Brady for. Those the polls?
Those are the polls.
All right, that's the show. Blaine and Mickey are next.